Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of this series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Crazy Comics and Stories. We'll never use that fake artificial intelligence, just our normal organic stupidity. How about yourself?
I would use artificial intelligence, but it draws a whole lot of extra fingers. Now, granted, that would make up for all the toes that Rob Liefeld has never drawn.
It would be kind of ticklish, too.
But no, we will just keep. I can't afford the artificial intelligence stuff.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Soon we'll be replaced.
By what?
By artificial intelligence. People say, I don't need to download this free 11, 12-year-old podcast.
13.
See, we're ancient in the world of podcasting. How many other podcasts are ahead of us, if any?
Oh, there's no way. No man can tell.
No man.
I know Comic Geek Speak.
You are the Korok.
I know Comic Geek Speak started in 2007, 2008.
Are they still going?
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
They're in the 1,800 and something. There for a while it was almost daily, but now they've cut back to weekly. I know that Peter Rios is still doing his solo podcast. He still calls it the Daily Rios, even though he's not doing it daily anymore.
False advertising.
But a lot of the early podcast pioneers seem to have faded away, which I completely understand.
Yeah, I gotta admit it. I will admit there are times where I'm like, what else are we going to talk about? This is getting old. And then subject magically appears.
Yes, you sent me all sorts of subjects, and I sent you one, and you, of course, hated the one that I sent. So let's start with yours.
Dismissed bitterly the ones I sent.
Oh, I did not dismiss the Mark Millar says old comic creators should come back.
Which actually was...
Oh, do I have a rant for that?
Oh, cool. Because I was just going to say, it's nothing new. We've been talking about it for how many years? 13 plus years? And, well, whatever. We've talked off-site, so that's our foreshadowing for the day. Usually I'm the one doing it, but in this case, Cory is. Although I did do a little foreshadowing you probably didn't catch, but continue.
So we've got Mark Millar, whose Netflix deal must be up soon, because he's talking comics again. And when I look at his Netflix shows, none of them lasted. They went a season and out. So now he's come back to comics.
Is this thing working?
And he's on a press tour.
Hello?
I'm still here.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Now I can't.
How about that? I just discovered a mute button on my phone. I'm sitting there dicking around with it. Hey, I got a mute on my headphones. Cool. So now I don't have to, when I feel like hawking up a loogie, or I've accidentally wrote, oh my God, definitely.
He's got a puke! He's got a puke!
Mark Millar.
Thought I could hold it there for a minute.
Been on a press tour because he's got comics coming out again for the first time since his big Netflix deal, which not a single one of those shows lasted more than one season. So he's doing a crossover with Kick-Ass, Kingsman, Nemesis, The Magic Order, and more, as well as The Chosen One. So he is, of course, stirring the pot. And he says around 20 legendary comic book writers should stage a comeback for both Marvel and DC for at least 2-year runs. We've got to man the stations. I think everybody's got to come in and do a couple of projects and find an artist who's as good as you could possibly get and just do some killer run on something. Sharing his first personal interaction with comic book stores, he asserts, the retailers, they're struggling out there. They're dying. All my friends and retailers say they've never known it as hard as this. And they weren't around in 1994 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
His proposal revolves around assembling authors such as Olivier Copiel and Pepe Larraz, who are both artists, to execute captivating arts, envisioning a rejuvenated era of comics. The funniest thing about this to me anyway, oh, by the way, this is from The Beat, and this is commentary on it. Back in 2010, another low point in comics, on a panel, Millar stated that it's desperation that creates innovation in any medium, and I'd like to see comics more innovative. He says that the only real progress at Marvel and DC comes when they were desperate and sales were slipping. So he wants to bring back top talents of the aughts and teens who, for the most part, have moved over to Image to do creator-owned stuff. Now, we've talked endlessly about how all the naysayers of comic sales are terrible are wrong, because when you look at the overall market, it grew 61% last year.
I even had to can a chat on another Facebook page because this guy was so insistent that everything was going bad and hell in a handbasket and whatever. And I was like, no, even in the Mark Millar article, somebody said, well, unfortunately he's wrong, and I just finally, I said, I got better things to do with my time. So I just deleted the entire post. I mean, and it was a post within a post. So it was just kind of my linking. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to listen to doom and gloom. I got Cory. He's up to date on what little we know of the figures.
Well, somebody at Image, when Millar was going, they need to quit doing their creator-owned stuff, none of which is sold since Saga came out. They need to come back to Marvel and DC. And somebody at Image is not named, but boy, looking at the list, I bet I could tell you who it was.
Oh, do tell.
Released their list of the top 25 number one books since, let's see here, since looks like it goes back as far as 2014. That's the earliest one on the list. So King Spawn, which came out in 2021, sold 480,000 copies.
And I've got 2 of them.
Gunslinger Spawn is number 2. Scorched is number 3. Spawn's Universe is number 4. All 4 of the top 4 books are Todd McFarlane. Crossover by Donny Cates is number 5. Twig by Scotty Young is number 6. Jupiter's Legacy, Mark Millar. Oh, that's the oldest one in 2013. Noctera by Scott Snyder. Stray Dogs, Dog Days. Mom, Mother of Madness by Emilia Clarke. Vanish by Donny Cates. Void Rivals by Robert Kirkman. That nobody knew was a Transformers book until it came out. Walking Dead Deluxe, which just reprints Walking Dead in color. Department of Truth, World Tree, Skybound X, Primordial, Outcast, Undiscovered Country, Geiger, What's the Furthest Place from Here, Witches, Reborn, which is another Mark Millar book that came out in 2016, Oblivion Song, and the number 25 book, We Stand on Guard by Brian K. Vaughan, which the first issue was 86,000. If you notice, Saga's not even on that list. And the reason for that is Saga was not an instant hit. It grew over time. Those are the top 25 with numbers for the number 1 and the number 25. And gee, Todd McFarlane Productions has the top 4. I guess somebody at Todd McFarlane Productions thinks Mark Millar's blowing smoke out his ass. And we hear over and over and over and over and over that if we just let the previous creators come in and do new books in their old style, it'll save the comic industry. Well, guess what?
Ironically, Marvel's doing.
And you know what? They're in the lower third of sales. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay because they're nostalgia pops. And I've talked to the past, a nostalgia pop is one of those things. First time through, oh my gosh, it's been so long, I missed this. And then the next time you go for the nostalgia pop, not nearly as big because, well, they just came back. Then by the fourth or fifth time, you kind of remember why they faded. I love Peter David's writing, absolutely do. But he is doing nostalgia pop books because that's kind of where he is in his career now. He's in his 60s. He's writing stuff based on the old things, and it sells in the lower third. Same for Ron Mars. Ron Mars, he and Ron Lim are coming back. I love those books. Absolutely love them. They're selling about the same place. There are other creators like Chuck Dixon who whines and bellyaches and cries that he's not being allowed to write comics because of his politics. Well, the last Batman miniseries he had, Bane, by the last issue was selling 10,000 copies, which if you look at sales charts in history, that's the lowest selling Batman comic in history. Would you hire someone who has the lowest selling Batman comic in history to write a book? No. One of the things I always loved about Brian Michael Bendis when he was on top is he said, look, I'm on top right now. I know it's not going to last. I know that my style will eventually fade. I know that the hot writer has a certain window, and when that window closes, it doesn't open up again. So I'm writing as much as I can while I'm hot, knowing that it will eventually end. And for him, he had a good 20-year run. Now he's over at Dark Horse doing creator-owned stuff that he cares about. And he has his feet, he's got his finger in things outside the comic industry because he knows how the business works. You've got guys like most of the Marvel writers that were with him. They were all around the same idea where, okay, I've made my name. Now I'm going to go to Image and do creator-owned stuff that I like. And I'm going to, I will own the rights to it. So when Hollywood comes knocking, they're going to pay me. It's not like Marvel where if I create Winter Soldier, I'll get a $5,000 thank you check and the movie makes $1 billion. You need to understand how corporate comics, DC, Marvel, things like that, how they work. While you're there, you're a cog in the machine, and you're going to have your time when you're hot, and then that time is going to end. And there are some people who take it well and some people who don't. One of the best stories I ever heard about someone's career in comics was Bill Mantlo. There was a time where Bill Mantlow's name was all over Marvel. And then as Jim Shooter left and other editors he'd worked with moved on, he realized he wasn't getting as many assignments, so he went to law school. He went over to DC. They gave him a big miniseries, and after that, they didn't offer him much other work. He left comics and went into law. Now, granted, he had a horrific accident, but he planned for a career after comics as a writer. It's the same with a lot of entertainment fields. There are a lot of people in this life who, when they make it big, think it's going to last forever, and it never, ever does, unless you're one of the very, very rare people. Even Jack Kirby, after his run at DC, came back to Marvel, and as he was looking at leaving Marvel, as he was looking at the end of his Marvel contract in '78, he wasn't seeing a market that really was going to keep giving him the power and money and control that he wanted. He had Mark Evanier, who worked in animation, and other friends who worked in animation. He got a job in animation and did very well there. But the idea of, well, let's get the band back together. Stan tried that in the 60s with a lot of Golden Age talent, and it didn't work. Younger fans, looked at it and didn't like it. The style had changed. Tastes had changed. What people wanted out of a comic had changed. Nostalgia is a wonderful drug, but it is not a solution. There is no business that can run forever powered by nostalgia. Nostalgia is for thrift stores and antique stores. It's not for Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, etc., etc., etc. Joe, what's your opinion on this?
It's hard to really talk about it since we have already without repeating it over and over and over. Yeah, we'd love to see John Byrne come back and finish the last Galactus story, but other than you and I, who cares? And a lot of what I'm hearing now, I heard back from the people who are in their 50s. And again, I started my store when I was 25, 26, complaining about the comics being done in the 90s weren't like the comics they grew up with in the 60s or 70s. Same old song and dance, same old story. If only Jack Kirby would come back. If only we could get Steve Ditko to do Spider-Man. And if only, been done. I personally am absolutely loving comics where they're at. I kind of love the long-term story because while it's going on, I tend to fade because I don't appreciate it. Big point would be brain fart, who just finished the run on Thor. Jason Aaron?
Yeah.
Did I get it? Yes. His run on Thor, 7 years. Absolutely phenomenal when I sat down and read it. When I first read War of the Realms, I was like, whatever. But when I've read his run up to War of the Realms, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. Hickman was another guy. He had Thor and Hyperion take off to go figure out where these inversions were coming from. 9 months later, they showed up, and I was like, what the hell? Where were they? What are they doing? When I sat down and read it in the omnibus form, and it, of course, led up to the Secret Wars, which itself was fun. Sometimes I find myself, like the last run of Avengers, I just dropped because I just wasn't enjoying it. I'm just going to pick it up in graphic novel form. And there's also a lot of complaining for complaining's sakes because you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you got X, formerly known as Twitter, and you can put out complaints. Very rarely do people complain or critique. Oh, Brian Hickman sucks. He doesn't know what he's doing with Legion of Superheroes. Well, guess what, you Legion of Superheroes fans? You got what you didn't want. There are no Legion of Superhero comics out there. I enjoyed what Brian Bendis, thank you, was trying to do.
He's already been forgotten by Joe.
He's not doing anything. So, but it's just amazing, and again, we get the same stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. Nobody hates their stuff more than their fans. Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel movies, Marvel comics, DC comics. Okay, well, maybe DC had some good valid complaints coming at them. But again, if the best you can come up with, this sucks. It's like, what was good old Paulie? He'd come to the shop, and I always felt bad because he complained about everything he bought. I said, Paul, could you say something nice about a comic? Well, this one doesn't suck.
And that's where we came up with the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic you like the most. Thank you, Butch.
Thank you. I still think Willie Mellon said it. We'll never get the two in the room together, so we'll just go with that. that's not to say that the comic industry ain't going to keep publishing, some of these old stuff.
Well, they've figured out how to package the old stuff in a way that makes it really profitable. Marvel is giddy over their Silver and Bronze Age because they're making a fortune off of it with the omnibuses and the epics. DC hasn't quite unlocked that door yet because when AT&T bought them, they decimated DC's collected edition department and have yet to rebuild it. But I remember Brian Wilson, who was older than us.
Not the Beach Boy.
And he would come in and he would lament that comics weren't like they were when he was a big fan. And I would always say, Brian, it's still there. You can still buy the older stuff. They're reprinting it. There are back issues, et cetera, et cetera. There's stuff that you didn't buy because you didn't have the money or whatever that was made back then. But I want to read the new stuff. But you don't like it. Why involve yourself in a hobby if you don't like it? If you like the old stuff, buy the old stuff. If you like 90s comics, there are people on Kickstarter perfectly happy to charge you $20 for a 32-page book that will come out in 2 years. So you can relive all the scratchy lines, all the monstrous boobs and hips, and the lateness. It's the 90s for you. Go, enjoy it. And you're already speculating because you're paying 5 times cover cost for a comic. Good for you. But the people who say, and then you point out that manga is making enormous amounts of money for Viz and other publishers. Well, that's manga. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. That's what the kids are reading. And those kids who started reading manga 20 years ago, they're now in their 30s. And they're still buying it. And they're still enjoying it. Otherwise, Viz would not be putting out 50 books a month. Viz is now putting out Spider-Man books. They're putting out X-Men books. They're putting out Wolverine books. Why? Because that audience is now, hey, I like those Spider-Man movies. Got any Spider-Man manga? Comics will change and evolve. I love anthology books, but they're a thing of the past. I love short stories. They're a thing of the past. And you have to be mature enough to realize, and I always make this joke with people who, well, MTV doesn't play music videos anymore. I said, well, you're in your 50s. They don't care what you watch. MTV markets to kids age 12 to well, it's more like 14 to 24. You're not in that demo. They don't care what you want. They're not going back and play Whitesnake anymore.
Actually,
the world moves on.
Yeah.
MTV is not, no.
MTV doesn't play anything.
Yeah, they do. They play Ridiculousness and Paramount Movies.
Yeah.
So much ridiculousness, which is basically America's funniest home videos we got off the internet. But kids, if they want to watch a video for their band that they like, they go to YouTube. And you should too, because they're all there.
Yeah.
And it feels like a rant we've been having for decades, but I'm so tired. Now you've got these comic creators, Mark Millar, who desperately needs attention because he's been gone, hasn't done anything in comics since 2017. That's over 5 years. I would say that younger fans don't know who the hell he is and couldn't care less. And I'm going to tell you something about his work he did at Marvel on the Ultimates. It didn't age well at all. When he came over and he did the Ultimates, it was all about shock and awe. We're going to have the Hulk eat people. We're going to have Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver sleep together. Isn't that shocking?
Oh my.
I think if he came back, and we'll talk about him a little later, but I wonder if it's, not we need to hire older creators and have them come and resave comics. It's, can somebody please hire me because I went through all my Netflix money, which a lot of people do. I think that's another problem we have with comic creators and other creative people who, when they're on top, they think the money will always be coming in, and it won't. There are very few people who are going to make a living off their big hits forever. There's Alan Moore, there's Dave Gibbons, and Frank Miller.
Neil Gaiman, too.
Well, yeah, but Neil Gaiman left comics.
True.
And let's be honest, the stuff he did for Marvel, while it was really cool, Eternals isn't in print anymore. 1602's not in print anymore.
And it really should be.
But it doesn't sell.
I wouldn't know. We never really get real data. For all we know, Marvel's just saying that so they don't have to pay him anymore.
No, because he's not. Remember, he wasn't getting paid for it. All the money, he did those, and all the money for it went into the Miracle Man lawsuit. That was the deal he had with Marvel.
Either way, that's the worst thing about comics. And it's kind of an echo of what's going on in Hollywood and streaming. We really don't know what sells. There is no independent book reviewer. What's the thing that Brian Hibbs goes to all the time when he's trying to figure out what sells and what doesn't?
BookScan.
BookScan. Yeah, there's nothing like that for comics. So when Marvel says it doesn't sell, I look at it with a kind of a, yeah, whatever you say. I don't believe them, because like you said, if it's out of print, it ain't going to sell anyways. Demand for it? Well, it's very easy for something to disappear, and if it goes out of print. And then, of course, there's other things that there's such a demand for, and they won't go to the well again. JLA Avengers, I'm looking at you. You wonder what would happen if DC would just not print Watchmen anymore. Other than, it going back to Alan Moore. Would people care? Do people still care?
Yeah, year over year, it's still in the top 25 selling graphic novels.
Which is amazing.
Same with Dark Knight.
Because how many thousands of them are out there? If not millions.
Last I saw, it was over 1.2 million by rough estimates.
And you would think if you want a copy, you could find a used copy somewhere rather than buying a new one. I was talking, I don't know if I complained about it already. I don't know. I have a list of freaking and geekings, and when I was doing my geeking, I was looking for copies of Injustice because I thought it was still popular. Maybe it isn't. And because I just read like volumes 1, 2, and 3, and I was like aghast. It was utterly amazing. I never flipped my allegiances so fast I'm for Superman. Now I'm against him. I'm for Batman. I'm against him. I'm for Sinestro. Now I'm not against him. Listen to your folks. No, it was just amazing. And I was exhausted by the time I get to the end of it. And I figured, you know what? I enjoyed these so much, and I bought them at a discount. I think one I got them through local comic stores. I will buy them when I go geeking. Nobody had them. Nobody had any of them on the shelves. Maybe they're in print. I can ask and have them publish it. But if they don't have it, well, kind of why Amazon's as big as it is, because people get to even going to Target and Walmart. They don't find it. Screw it. I can just order it on Amazon, have it delivered the next day. I haven't yet, but
Well, here's the other thing about Injustice, though. It's based on a video game that came out in 2017. In video game years, that's ancient.
But the question is that ancient in graphic novel years? Are these out of print? Is this so far removed from anything that it's not worth republishing? And I'm just going to go find it on the back issue market. That's kind of, Marvel did a big announcement, all these perennials coming out. Again, I'm not a retailer, don't care. 99% of what they published, I don't care. And again, I'm kind of leaning towards Marvel Unlimited, where I can get it all for, what is it now, 20 a month? I don't know. I haven't looked lately. It was 10 when I
always buy it annually, because it's like either $69.99 or $79.99.
Yeah, exactly.
It's $69.99 whenever they have a sale.
Usually
and
Black
they have
Friday.
sales all the time.
Yeah. So.
Or when a new Marvel movie comes out, or when Marvel is at South by Southwest, or when they're at San Diego.
What we've talked about having these books available when a movie comes out. The classic example, when the X-Men movie came out, Marvel had no X-Men comics.
No, they had no X-Men trade paperbacks.
They had nothing. People would come in and want to read, and I had nothing to show them, because you'd pick up a single issue, and it wasn't anybody they recognized. It wasn't, and the one things they did have, those Marvel movie things that had Wolverine, Rogue, Magneto on it, they were $6. Comics were what, $1.99?
Back then they were $1.99, yeah.
I mean, these guys came in to read a comic book, not to get an upsell. So when Marvel says, "Oh, we got these perennials coming," I'm like, I look at it dubiously, because again, are they things that retailers are clamoring for? Maybe.
Well,
Ms. Marvel was one of them, and I'm like, yeah, that should be there. I talk long and hard about waiting for the kids at the library to drop the Ms. Marvel and Black Panther graphic novels so I could swoop them up and check them out.
Well, let's talk about that, because that was an announcement Marvel made this week. They have what they're calling their Evergreens. Now, in the book trade, Evergreens are books that stay in print forever. Stuff like Catch-22, A Farewell to Arms,
the Bible.
Well, nobody owns the Bible, so everybody publishes the Bible.
Always in print.
To Kill a Mockingbird, on and on and on. Stephen King's books. None of Stephen King's books are out of print right now. And these are books that stay in print all the time. Now, there are a lot of books, and this was something that I didn't grasp when I was younger, but there are a lot of books that are just kind of like magazines. Your standard, average, run-of-the-mill science fiction, fantasy, horror, mystery, whatever. They put out a single printing of 20 to 30,000 copies, and if it sells out, it usually sells out over a year. They're not going to do a second printing, because bookstores aren't saying, hey, we sold out of generic mystery number 205. We need more copies of it. Harlequin romances are the best example. They are literally published by like magazines. We put out 10 a month. You can go to the website and subscribe, and you'll get all 10 every month. Do they reprint them? Oh, hell no. They're disposable. So what Marvel has done, they've announced that they have a line of evergreen books. These are books that they're going to keep in print. Now, let's remember also, the Epic line is an evergreen line, because Marvel has committed to keep them in print as well. But I have the list here, and I thought we could go over it, talk about what's missing, talk about what you don't think or I don't think should be on it, and what should be added. So the top one is Marvel's.
Before we start moving, I do want to say there's one thing that I did think about while you talked about that. First of all, as evergreen announcements, I don't care. I'm not a retailer anymore. So again, I'd be more curious if you're a retailer out there, get a hold of us. And is this something that you're meeting with a hooray, or just kind of a meh.
I think
And
this is
as
more for
DC
bookstores.
And DC, well, then I definitely give it a meh because, again, I support the comic book industry. No, the local retailers, not necessarily Barnes and Noble or Amazon. And again, Marvel has one advantage and a disadvantage that DC has: continuity. What did I bitch about when I tried to read Maximum? What the hell? That when they threw all the bad guys on Earth.
Maximum Security.
Yeah. What was the one thing I bitched about?
That you didn't know what the hell was going on with most of the characters.
Yeah, really. Cyclops is dead. Charles Xavier. So again, how do you make an evergreen out of that? It's a great crossover. The big Avenger crossover that happened in January, where they have ended up killing the Kray's supreme intellect or whatever it was. I'm trying to lean over to see it on my bookshelf, and I can't quite get the angle.
Operation Galactic Storm.
Yeah. Again, can it be a perennial? Is it so tied to continuity? I just wanted to throw that out there because we're going to revisit it when we get to Freaking. But let's go back and, again, start from the top. What do they got?
Number one is Marvel's. I completely agree. Marvel's is a book
original.
that should always be in print.
Yeah, Marvel's is like Kingdom Come. Standalone. You don't need to know a lot about it going in, going out. It helps, but a good introduction written by the right person could get things rolling.
Number two is Ms. Marvel Volume 1.
Which I agree because she's going to be in the Marvels movie. She's got her own series. And again, from what I've seen with kids at the library, it speaks to them. The kids, you white old people, and I'm being racist because you're the guys going, this is dumb. We don't need it. Why don't you do it? Rename a new character? No, it's not for you. It's for young Muslim kids who do not see themselves represented anywhere, and now they do.
And it's also for young girls.
I enjoyed the living heck out of it.
Yeah, it's a well-written book, but this is a book that again sells outside of comic shops. Yeah. Secret Wars.
First or second?
First.
Agreed. Again, needs an introduction to just say, hey, at this time, Rodney was Iron Man. I mean, you'll figure it out later on, but there's a lot of head scratching going on.
Well, this was also during the time when they over-explained everything. So there's a lot of, gosh, Tony Stark would be here if he wasn't at home drunk. And I, Rhodey, his bodyguard, blah, blah, blah. Shooter was really good about doing that. I agree. I don't like this story. And the older I get, the less I like it. But I understand why people like it. It's more than a nostalgia pop. It is all the heroes versus all the villains. This is a comic for a 12-year-old who has action figures. Infinity Gauntlet.
I agree. No, I agree. It's not one to give to your friends who, hey, yeah, I like the movie. Because, I had to explain to them a lot. Like, okay, this is not what you're going to see in the movie, but it is still pretty darn good. I think it would be better with the lead up to the Silver Surfer and the main series.
Yeah, but that's a huge book.
It is, but it also helps.
Because even Infinity Gauntlet itself is a $40 book because it's 6 double-size issues. Immortal Hulk Volume 1.
Immortal? I haven't read it yet. I just got the omnibus. Oh, I'm so happy.
I agree. This is a fantastic Hulk story. Really good introduction to the horror side of the character. You don't need to have read anything before it.
Cool.
Spider-Man Miles Morales Volume 1 by Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli.
See the same comment I made for Ms. Marvel.
Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet. This is the Ta-Nehisi Coates first volume.
Same.
I think out of all the Black Panther stories, this is the best one for new readers I adore Panther's Rage. Panther's Rage is one of my favorite comics ever, but I do not think a modern audience would key into it as much as they would this book. Civil War.
Yes.
X-Men Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yeah.
Dark Phoenix Saga is
I'm
really...
shocked it's out of print.
No, it's not that these are out of print. It's these, Marvel is committed to always having these available.
Okay.
Here's one that I don't agree with. House of X, Powers of X.
Yeah.
I think when the Krakoa story is done, this will be a lot less relevant.
Yeah, it'll have to have a major, put the toys back in the sandbox for the next guy.
I love this book. I love the X-Men run that came out of it. I think 20 years from now, this will all have been wiped away and it won't be relevant. Like Dark Phoenix Saga is still relevant because those are the X-Men from the movie. And that is the biggest X-Men story. It really set the tone for the X-Men. House of X, Powers of X, I love it a lot, but I don't even think 5 years after the Krakoa story is over, there'll be a lot of people who aren't already fans trying to get the book.
And I can tell you why, but we'll save it for when we get to geeking.
Wolverine, Old Man Logan.
Yeah, I suppose.
I think this works because you don't need to know anything.
That helps.
And it's a Western. It's a Western. Clint Eastwood could have played Wolverine in it. He's retired. He's not a superhero anymore. He's a farmer, but he's pulled back in. And then the last one, Daredevil Born Again.
Other than the fact I don't think 90% of real people know who Daredevil is, the fact that it's a brilliant done-in-one type thing could work. Again, like you said, you don't need to know anything outside the initial story.
I think with Daredevil, though, because it was such a big hit on Netflix, and they're going to bring it back, I think Daredevil is a character that people know. Even though I think Ant-Man is a character people know, there are no good Ant-Man stories for this. Now, here are the ones that I would add. There are no Iron Man stories.
Oh, yeah, you need to do that, especially since, with Robert Downey Jr., he remade Wolverine.
I think Power of Iron Man, which was a trade paperback they put out of the first time Tony Stark found out, basically the first Tony Stark is an alcoholic story by Michelini Layton and John Romita Jr. That was a trade paperback in the early 80s. I think that works. You don't need to have read any other Iron Man stuff. It is a lot of, okay, in this issue he fights, but we don't have any other Iron Man stories that aren't specifically tied to things. Even Warren Ellis's Extremis, which was supposed to be sort of a Iron Man story that gets put in books and printed. It's now kind of been undone and redone and messed up and all this stuff to the point where you would read it and go, well, why isn't Iron Man like that? There are no Peter Parker Spider-Man books.
And for that matter, based on my personal opinion, you could do the early Ditko stuff, because I've given that in the Marvel Masterwork format to not only my daughters growing up, but to my neighborhood kid who likes Spider-Man. Those early Stan Lee, Steve Ditko stories still hold up very, very well.
Now, I do think Power and Responsibility, which was the first 7-issue, the redoing of the Origin by Bendis and Mike Bagley, works. But I have an odd one that I would want to put.
Not Troubles.
No.
Okay.
Kraven the Hunter, the 6-issue Mike Zeck, JMD Matias story. In a lot of ways, to me, that is Spider-Man's Dark Knight. Joe is ruminating.
No, I'm thinking that, but I'm also thinking now in terms of, like, you should have maybe a Venom out there too, so people know who Venom is.
Yeah.
Just you need to look either at there should be a Doctor Strange. I think the early Ditko Strange here might work.
Captain America: War and Remembrance. That is the short Roger Stern, John Byrne run. For Thor, I picked the Mangog story.
I was talking with a buddy of mine I met at the Source, and I said, to this day, Kirby's Mangog gives me shivers. I can't look at that character and not feel frightened.
And yes, they brought Mangog back to the point where he didn't mean much. But that first story, that is Thor. And it's done in such a way that I think modern audiences would have no problem with it. I think it's self-contained enough that you could just, boom, here it is.
Boom, here it is.
For the Avengers, I choose Avengers Under Siege. That's the story where the Masters of Evil invade Avengers Mansion, beat the shit out of the Avengers, and they have to rally and retake the mansion.
I think a lot of these would work as long as, again, like I said, you start a good intro. Even the classic, get a little headshot and who are these people? Hercules, son of Zeus, blah, blah, blah. Came to Earth to have adventures, have fun, and wound himself up. Because a lot of these also come with, if you're the first time reader, and again, I'm thinking that way, you're going to go, who are these people? Why do I care? That was always one of my big complaints very early on. Whenever we would talk about a new book, and early Image was very guilty of this. Here's a new book with 500,000 new characters, and you got to figure them out. Death Team, Team Death.
And none of them have a personality other than I want to kill people.
Yeah.
The last one on my list, Punisher, Welcome Back, Frank.
I don't know if I read that. Is that Ennis or?
Yeah, that's the 12-issue Garth Ennis miniseries.
Okay, I have not read that. That is in my.
That's the one with Ma. What's her name?
I haven't read it. It's in my pile.
Oh my God! You didn't read that when it came out?
Dude, I haven't read any of Ennis's Punisher. This is something.
Oh.
This is something I drool about thinking about reading.
You need to remedy that this week.
It's on the to-do list.
Because remember, that's the one where Ennis basically said, they had done the story where Punisher worked for Heaven, fighting demons and everything. And in the interview before it came out, they said, well, with all of this and that and the other, what are you going to do? Punisher's going to kill a lot of criminals, mostly with vowels.
I must have read it. Because you remember, that's one of the things I talk about when somebody comes in, changes things. One line, worked for Angels once, didn't like it, told them where to go. So I must have read it at some time. I just don't remember.
And those are the ones that I would add. Now, if I were a comic shop, these are also the ones I would keep for when somebody comes wandering in, lost, and knows the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And if they ask, well, is there a good Ant-Man story? Just shake your head and go, no, there isn't.
No, the movies are the best.
And believe it or not, Joe, we've got our hour in.
Woohoo!
And you know what that means.
Oh, I can finally sneeze.
It's time for these guys, our sponsors.
Oh, crap.
Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And Joe, it's your turn for a retro review. Do you have one?
All right. I do. And believe it or not, I'm going for one of the earliest Marvel DC crossovers. And Cory, you can explain to the good folks why. I'm going all the way back to 1972 to go through Justice League America number 103. At the beginning, it's got my favorite of all-time character, at least New 52. Again, another reason why DC's having trouble, because anything before New 52, nobody cares about. It is the stroke of midnight. I have come for you as the Phantom Stranger stares at the Justice League. And we're talking Superman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkman, Green Arrow. A stranger walks among us. On page, the ad, of course, inside is Daisy BB Target Trap for $1.99. You can get a $4 value trap and get something so a boy learns to act like a man. If anything, that's the problem today. We don't give kids enough BB guns to shoot things with.
So they can learn how to act like a man.
Yep. So this is Justice League America, Volume 13. Again, every year was a new volume. It's really Volume 1. Number 103, December 1992, published monthly with the exception of January, March, July, and November.
So
By
it
national
was 8 times a year.
Period, yeah. So not monthly, 8 times a year. Let's see, DC is still at 909 3rd Avenue. What makes a man a champion? Is it its powers and abilities beyond those of mortals? Or is it the knowledge that causes one fight is for righteous and just? Men call me the Phantom Stranger, and I come this time to seek an answer. Are true champions born, or are they made? So they're in Rutland, Vermont, as a crowd mills about, and an old lady comes out who says the names who are those who are about to die within 24 hours. Then as the yearly ritual begins, each chilling peal of the clock, a name is chanted. And I've already chanted them. Superman, Flash, bong. Green Lantern, bong. Hawkman, Batman, Green Arrow. With each bell tolled, these names I say of those who will die by end of day. So meanwhile, up in the JLA satellite orbiting the Earth at how many miles, Cory?
I honestly do not remember.
22,300 miles above the Earth. And there's a meeting going on, and previously some of the Justice League are on Earth 2 helping the 7 soldiers of justice of victory adjust the world of the present. And the editor says, please see JLA 100 to 102 for details. And everybody's confused because while Hawkman calls the emergency meeting to order, nobody knows who summoned it. Because everybody assumed Batman did because he arrived late as usual. And then you hear, you were correct. You guessed incorrectly, Green Lantern. The Batman did not summon you. I did. Who? The name is not important, Superman, but my mission is, unless you heed what I say, your world will end when the witching hour tolls no more. Who do you think? Oh, God, I wish I could do a decent voice of the Phantom Stranger. Who do you think would be a good Phantom Stranger, Cory?
I'm trying to think.
Len Wein wrote it. Dick Dillon and Giordano are the artists, with Julie Schwartz being the editor.
Okay, here's my idea, just because it's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Walken.
Okay, I can't do a good Walken.
I am the Phantom Stranger.
Come here to do something I find most unusual, gentlemen. Boy, we thought Shatner was good. Anyways, the only one to speak up for Phantom Stranger is Batman. Everybody else is like, listen, I don't know who you are. And Batman's like, I know this man. We better listen to what he has to say, which is I always find interesting because when in JLA Avengers, Batman was the one dissing the Phantom Stranger, even though he's the one that said, no, he's helped him before. So Phantom Stranger explains that it's October 31st, Halloween, a day for dark things, and is here the city, Rutland, Vermont, that those unholy entities will cross Blackgate and gain life once more. And you know who's doing it? Felix Faust. But he's still in prison. I put him there myself, says Superman. The cell holds only ethereal illusion, Superman, a simple trick for one of Faust's mystic skills. Now, gentlemen, since you know all you need to know, I take my leave. Green Lantern covers him with a cone. When he lifts him up, he's gone. But how? Everybody's confused, and except Batman says he can. That's why he's known as the Phantom Stranger. Superman's a little pissed. He goes, what's to consider? Where'd Felix Fox is, we better be there. As he points his finger to the map of Rutland and sticks his finger through it, I think we'll do our trick-or-treating in Rutland this year. So as they get there, there's a group of people heading in there, but the muffler fell off their car. It's Steve, and they're upset because, they're going to miss the party that's going on. After all the hassles I had at last year's, and you can go to see Batman 237, Night of the Reaper. As they take off, of course, we see the shadow of the Phantom Stranger watching them drive off. Oh, continue 2-page following. That means here come the ads, Cory. What does this champion have in common with you? Steve Draper, Mr. America, Mr. Universe, a welder pupil. Yes, Joe Wielder, Department 80-1112V, Maple Street, Newark, New Jersey. You can get his absolutely free catalog to get bigger arms, larger chest, broader shoulders, athletic eggs, more weight, lose weight, and a magnetic personality. Zip codes are needed here, unlike some of them. Okay, on the second page, you see the JLA combing the countryside and did not see a thing. And then they're like, well, what are we going to do next? I'm not sure if we could recognize a demon if I tripped over one. Batman's like, well, what we need is a base of operation. And I think just the spot. Follow me, chums. You're in for a surprise. And as I get there, the guys in the car show up and they're, hey, it's Len, Glynis, Gary, Steve. How are you? Glad you can make it. So are we, Tom. Steve's car is falling apart. Probably been more comfortable if we come by ox cart. I know. I'm pleased you accept my invitation. Does that invitation hold for us, Tom? He goes, oh my gosh. Happy Halloween, Tom. Good to see you again. Tom and Batman recognize each other. Green Lantern's kind of a little upset, and he says, well, Green Arrow's trying to get across. Can we stick around here for a while? He goes, a little while? You can stay forever if you want.
Now, can I explain who these people are?
Explain, Cory, who these people are, because Julie will never believe me when I tell him about this.
So, in Amazing Adventures number 16, which was a story about the Beast, Roy Thomas and his wife, Steve Englehart, Gary Conway, Len Wein and his wife, Glynis, are driving to Rutland. The Juggernaut runs into their car, damaging it. And that is why they are in this. This is an unofficial crossover. So Roy, Gene, Steve, Gary, Len, Glenn are those people. They have just been in Amazing Adventures number 16. They will next show up in Thor number 207. And the reason for this is every year, Rutland would have a Halloween parade where people would dress up in superhero costumes. Tom is Tom Fagan, who organized it.
Mm-hmm.
And they had sort of an unofficial crossover. So you had people in superhero costumes changed just enough so that, well, it looks kind of like Superman. It looks kind of like Batman in the Marvel books. And in the DC books, it's, well, he looks kind of like Spider-Man. He looks kind of like Thor. It was more of a fun thing for fans.
Yeah.
But I'm on my comic shop, and some of the prices on these, like that Thor issue, is frighteningly expensive.
Yeah. This one I found in a dollar bin because it is pretty beat up. So it's Rutland's 13th annual Halloween parade. Meanwhile, before we got to that, there's again the big 3 drafting kits you can get that will help you train at home for a high-paying job in drafting. Rush coupon for a free kit underneath it for only $1. Enter the wonderful world of amazing live sea monkeys, a bowl full of happiness, which I say every morning when I have a decent bowel movement. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyways, so what's cool on this page, and I'm on page 9, you've got the JLA on it. Behind them, a bunch of people in costumes. Hey, looks like the Hulk. Looks like Spider-Man, Supergirl. I think that's a Robin. I think that's a Thor. And there's a Captain Marvel, the original. Cory, what's so interesting about Captain Marvel showing up here?
DC was not publishing that book yet.
Yeah, there's an ad we'll get to. They're 2 months away from it. So as they turn around, as Hawkman turns around, the crowd, the other floats vanished. The crowd's still cheering like nothing happened. Matter of fact, the crowd is completely entranced. They realize it's Frost's handiwork, and they suggest we split up, as they want to do in Justice League. As the Flash is running across with Hawkman, suddenly a round shield with a red, white, and blue on it and a star in the middle, twang, trips the Flash. And here comes 3 parade goers dressed as Supergirl, Adam Strange, and Commando America at your service. And they attack the Flash. And here we go. Let's see. And Flash gets taken out by the Commando with his shield. In the meantime, Hawkman's in the air, dousing Supergirl. We got a couple ads here. The Adventures of Corgi Boy, with all the different Corgi toys you can buy, both the full size and the Corgi Juniors. And at the prices these guys had, I wish I could send away for them now. On the next page is the ad for Shazam is coming. Coming in December, DC's Christmas gift to you. Say it, Billy Batson. Say the magic word, Shazam, and you become, boom, the world's mightiest mortal. Watch out, Superman. Here comes the original Captain Marvel. So this is, if I'm assuming they timed this book of Justice League to come out Halloween in October, that's why I'm thinking 2 months later will be Shazam. See, back to the fight. Flash is doused. However, birds start attacking Captain Commando American because that's something Hawkman can do. Supergirl rips off his wing control as he rips off the blonde wig of Supergirl, crashes to the ground. We have done as commanded. Now we return to the master. Flash, they're fading away. I'm too weak to stop them. Can't move, feel weak, something's wrong. We have help, Hawkman. The Phantom Stranger, over here, friend. We need you. Phantom Stranger just pauses for an instant to retrieve something one from Flash, one from Hawkman, and then disappears into the shadows. Help us. Faust, meanwhile, is happy because 2 Justice Leaguers down, 4 to go. The next panel, Batman's fighting against this. This is the most interesting comment of the book. This bargain basement web slinger has all the powers of the real thing. Could there have been a crossover before that unofficially we don't know about? So Batman's, meanwhile, trying to get away from this guy. Green Lantern, of course, is able to grab the webs and pull it aside. But then a poor man's version of the Norse thunder god comes wheezing up. And while he's he's able to use his hammer to smash through Green Lantern's cage and knock him out. Batman trips the Thor only to be knocked out in the foot by Robin. You? Batman passes out, draining my life force. Phantom Stranger, you must help. Phantom Stranger just walks by. Felix Faust is happy. 4 down. Unless all 6 Justice Leagues perish at the stroke of midnight, my outworld demons will be forced to return whence they came. And I wouldn't want that to happen. No, I wouldn't like that at all. Elsewhere, the The three recently entranced visitors to Green Mountain State pause for the briefest of moments because they can't understand where Lynn disappeared to or the other ones. Meanwhile, Superman's fighting the big cheese. He's as powerful as I am almost. Better show him who's number one, Superman thinks for it. It's too big for his britches. Green Lantern's fighting the Golden Age Flash while Superman thumps the Shazam. An oil slick arrow makes the Flash slide, but unfortunately he aimed it wrong and the Flash slides right into Green Arrow and knocks him out. But first, we have an ad for Kenner's SSPs, the wind tunnel test. Oh, you race them. GT Coupe, Blue Monday, Flare Pair, and I'm not talking Rick. 24 SSP racers complete, ready to race. From Kenner, Fun Group at General Mills. Didn't know General Mills owned them. Anyway, Superman, meanwhile, is at a stalemate with Big Red. Look close at your adversary's lips, Superman. You discover what happens. All of a sudden, a lightning bolt smacks Superman. He's out, and it's a Phantom Stranger walks past, picking up something off Superman, something off Green Arrow. All 6 Justice Leaguers are down. They've fallen. Now from the ashes of their defeat shall rise the cornerstone of a new empire, the glorious empire of Felix Faust. Meanwhile, as the 3 people are walking upstairs, the Phantom Stranger looks at the clock. And as the clock starts ringing, he hears bong, Green Lantern. Bong, Green Arrow. Every time he does it, Batman, bong, he tosses something. Flash, bong, he tosses something. Superman, boom. Hawkman, he tosses something. And now we recognize it's the wing controller he pulled from earlier. Cory, should I skip these super detailed small ads where you could get things like 7-Foot Monster, Muscles of Steel, Moneymaker, Super Spy, because I've done it before?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what happens is the Justice Leaguers wake up and they're very upset with the Stranger. You betrayed us. No, Batman, I saved you from the mystic machinations of Felix Faust. You had been enhanced, the 6 of you, by a spell of imminent death. To counteract the spell, I required a personal possession from each of you, but it could not be given to me freely. Since Faust's magic had condemned your demon battle to failure, I devoted my efforts to the ultimate salvation of your lives. And you definitely succeeded, said Batman. Get it? They passed out. He was able to take something from each of them. That's why he walked by them all. Felix Faust suddenly realizes that, something's wrong. The demons are fleeing their host. There's only one possible reason for that. The Justice League America still lives. They'll be coming after me. The 3 walking up the stairs. Mister, whatever your problem is, there's got to be a better way. Don't kill yourself. Faust jumps out the window into a car, drives away. Well, happens to be, Steve's car for earlier. My car, my poor freaking car. Hey, it's 12:02 a.m. What a lousy way to start a day. And then Lynn shows up in her Supergirl outfit. No blonde wig. My poor head. What's been going on? Oh, and our feet are off. Where in blazes have you been? And they look over and there's the Justice League corralling the demons and they're flying away. Faust, meantime, gets pulled over. All right, buddy, pull this museum piece over the side of the road. And he's like, my supernatural powers are totally exhausted. No way to fight back. Only one thing to do. Steps out of the car, his hands forward. Okay, officers, I'm yours. Put the cuff on. I can't figure out what tipped you off to me. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. You got a faulty muffler on this thing. We just pulled you over to check out. Boss is arrested. He's laughing deliriously at his foolishness, and the Phantom Stranger just watches. Moments later, gone. All of them, and Green Lantern sealed the dimension portal behind them. Gentlemen, it appears you all fared well. Phantom Stranger, just the man we want to see. We've been talking it over amongst ourselves, and well, we'd like you to join the Justice League. An honor, Superman, one I'm not entirely certain I deserve. You let us decide that, pal. We're going to vote on it. So there's a moment of furious discussion. Within seconds, we've decided, Phantom Stranger, you're now a member of... Well, can you beat that? Superman says he's gone. Didn't even wait long enough to find out he made it. Batman says, I think he knows, Superman. We'll see him again if ever we need him. Next issue. On or about December 5th, the Shaggy Man will get you if you don't watch out. Got the JLA mail room with a bunch of fun things in there from, let's see, Bruce Jones, Joe Rule, Perry Binder. The last couple ads, kids, which is a magazine for kids, by kids, for kids. It's your chance to get a subscription for 50 cents. Cory never finished high school. Now you can get a diploma without going back at Wayne School. Wayne School wants to help you finish at home. Never mind. Oh, remember that poser earlier? Well, here we've got Charles Atlas. Don't be half a man in the classic cartoon, The Insult That Made a Man Out of Mac. On the last page, 4 ways to get AFX racing set you want for Christmas. Number 1, place this reminder in the egg tray of the refrigerator. And basically you could cut out the ad on the back of your comic book, which is why there's probably not a lot of Mint 103 comics lying around. You can put one of them under the wiper, under the windshield wiper of Dad's car. The other one, place this reminder on your father's briefcase. And the last one is place this reminder on your father's shaving mirror. For example, it says, there will be some pretty close shaves when you and your son are racing AFX cars on Christmas Day. And of course, the briefcase, to be brief. Any of us racing set is all I want for Christmas. And the eggs, I'm not yoking around. You want me to continue?
No.
Okay, the Aurora, we're for real. There you have it. Fun story. If I ever can afford a cheap copy of the other ones, it'd be fun to read the counterpoints on this. The art is spectacular, of course, because you're talking, this is the classic Dick Dillon and Dick Giordano. Yeah. I mean, this is awesome stuff. And I love The Phantom Stranger. This one, like I said, if I can find, I may have a decent copy of this in my collection. If not, I got one now.
Well, now it's time for my favorite part of the show.
Oh, is this where we chat with Cherry Girls now? Live? More models, more fun, best price genetic.
No, not where I call Mean Gene Okerlund to find out the secrets behind wrestling for $1.99 a minute. No, it's freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Let's see. Well, I asked Cory this, and I'm going to call him out publicly. Again, I know it's the only thing I ever get anything done. But there is a Comic-Con coming up in February in Fargo, Minnesota that Roy Thomas is going to. And of course, the big thing with Roy Thomas is I don't think he does a lot of cons. So it's kind of rare to see him out and about actually going to one. And I figured, well, Fargo's a couple miles up the road. Cory, you want to go? We could actually maybe you have the ability to talk to him. Maybe we could agree to do a quick podcast with him. And Cory's like, oh, that's too far out to plan. And I do one of my old buddy Pat McDonough's head twist. Like, what? I got to plan my stuff out. I got one time of the year to plan out everything. This is Free Comic Book Day, Black Friday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and then, of course, Dana's graduating. Was it grad school? After, yeah, grad school. She's going to have her master's. So I got to, plan all this stuff out. So if I'm going to go, I got to plan it ahead of time or take a sick time. But Cory, no, he doesn't want to plan this far out. I can't plan that far out.
It's not that I don't want to. It's that I can't.
Good on television. Yeah. No. But the problem is, though, with a con like that, trying to find a hotel room in Fargo might be rough. So whenever you get around to it, I just thought it'd be a fun road trip.
I agree. I've got family stuff going on that I don't want to get into on the podcast.
Yep.
I really am playing each week by ear.
And I've seen Cory's ears. Ooh. I'm trying to find the Fargo Con. I have the flyer somewhere, but we'll talk about it. It's not till February, so it's a ways away. I talked about, continuity in a book. I read the hardcover DC Universe Lazarus Planet. I had high hopes for this because Mark Waid wrote it. This may be a complete event, but DC, this is definitely not the way to do it. Why is that? Well, first of all, it comes out of the pages of Batman versus Robin. If you haven't read it, if you haven't read Mark Waid's World's Finest, you're not going to know the villain. And I haven't read Batman versus Robin yet. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Worse off, when it ends, it goes into the next issue of Batman versus Robin. So if you're a poor guy reading Batman versus Robin thinking, oh, I'm just going to read this. No, it goes off into this big event. And it covers, you get the Lazarus Planet Alpha, Lazarus Planet Assault of Krypton, Lazarus Planet Once We Were Gods, Lazarus Planet Legends Reborn, Lazarus Planet Next Evolution, Lazarus Planet Dark Fate, and Lazarus Planet Omega. The basic gist of it is that the Lazarus volcano, don't ask, has erupted, releasing clouds of its unique lava into the atmosphere. Think Inhumans Terra gas when it's covered the Earth, causing a bizarre and dangerous rainstorm across the globe. Those who survive the exposure to the storm are transformed. Those without powers, superpowers gain them. Those who had powers, including some of DC Universe heavy hitters, find their abilities amplified or altered in unexpected ways. With Batman out of commission, it's up to Robin to assemble the world's greatest heroes to stop the storm and defeat the deadly villains who caused it. I really had no effing clue what was going on in this $29.99 hardcover. And to make matters worse is as the characters fought, usually this seemed to be kind of I don't know how would you call it, Cory? It's like events come into this book and then they're going to go out elsewhere. So like they have an interesting story about Nightwing running into City Boy, but it ends with City Boy's adventures will continue this year. Stay tuned. And when Firestorm's in it, it's only the beginning. In other words, we don't see the cliffhanger set up. It's going into the Firestorm book. And every single story was like that. It wasn't, it's like another one in Flatland. As somebody I've never seen before, who obviously has mystic powers, ends up in front of Ra Al Ghul, and it says, oh, so not the end. And again, this is a terrible, terrible book for anybody who's not reading what's leading up to it, reading the characters, what's going on to it, or going away from it. For an event, this sucks because it's not self-contained. We talked about perennials earlier. Infinity Gauntlet, yeah, it comes, drags a lot of people in. Secret Wars drags a lot of people in and spits them out at the end. But as a standalone, it's fine. This left a really bad taste in my mouth. The only reason I bought it is because I'm going to eventually read Batman versus Robin, and then I'll probably get the significance of the events. Just like I said earlier, I read War of the Realms because it was the big crossover interfering all the books. It was meh. But when I read the books coming up to it, the 7-year complete Jason Aaron Thor, brilliant. So we'll revisit this in a moment. Yes, Fall of X, I'm looking at you. That's pretty much it. Because the other things I was talking about, that Facebook argument, I've already deleted. Cory, how about you? What are you freaking on?
Oddly enough, I am not freaking about anything having to do with comics. First off, the weather. It is the end of summer. This podcast will drop right after Labor Day, right after the Minnesota State Fair ends.
And
it is September. And this weekend it's going to be over 100 degrees.
Yes.
No.
No.
Now, looking at afterward, it does drop down back into the 80s. But no. I actually had plans to go do stuff outside, but at 100 degrees, no. Especially a lot of my plans were to take the clients from the group home places because it's the last weekend of summer. They can't be out in that weather. It's not safe for them. Now, we're also probably going to get rain on Labor Day. So the last weekend of the summer, not going to be a lot of fun for people like me who, once it gets above 90 degrees, we're like, I need to move so much further north. All Elite Pro Wrestling had their biggest show ever. They had 81,000 tickets sold for Wembley Stadium on Sunday. That's WrestleMania style numbers. And what happened? One of the lower card schlubs, Jack Perry, decided to stick basically out in front of the crowd, verbally stick a thumb in CM Punk's eye. We don't know everything that happened backstage, but the story that seems to be sort of bubbling up as the most true is that backstage, CM Punk was the next match, and Jack Perry went up to CM Punk and said, see, I didn't need to use fake glass. I used real glass. What are you going to do about it, huh? What are you going to do about it? And they came to blows. So this company has built to this huge event, and all we know about it after, and there's so much drama during the show. This is the gang that can't shoot straight. I love AEW. I really do. It's wrestlers that WWE would not have touched. It's people with gimmicks, people who are smaller, people who don't do the WWE style of punch, punch, kick, kick, punch, punch, kick, kick, finishing move. And yet, every time they're able to build up to something big, backstage drama screws it up. It really left a rotten taste in my mouth. And CM Punk has been suspended. Stories are that after he finished his match, he was like, why am I even here if I have to put up with this crap? Why am I working with children? I don't want to be here anymore. And when CM Punk is done, he's done. Ask Triple H. And I like CM Punk. I really do. I think he's one of the most charismatic wrestlers who knows the business, knows how to put a good match on, knows how to put together a good show. And if he's gone again, there's no way WWE is ever going to bring him in. There's no other big company other than New Japan. He could be done. And he's still able to deliver good matches. And then the last thing I am freaking on, I am an Xbox fanboy. I love my Xbox. For years and years and years, they've had this thing called Games with Gold. If you subscribe to the Xbox Gold, which is their internet, so you can download stuff and chat and all that. Basically, it's their online portion. You get free games every month. And until earlier this year, it was 4 free games every month. Then it dropped down to 2 because they no longer had any of the Xbox and Xbox 360 games. It all had to be Xbox One. Well, it all ends this month. This is the last month you get Games with Gold. After this, they will have games you can play for free, but you don't get to own them, blah, blah, blah. Because they're trying to get everybody to go to the all-you-can-eat version of an Xbox streaming service. And I don't play enough games for that. I really don't. I turn on my Xbox maybe 4 or 5 times a month. But I liked every month getting some free games. They were games that I would not have bought and would not have played and would not even know about without it. And some of them have been a lot of fun. My favorite video game right now is, what did they call it? Space Invaders Evolution.
Ooh.
Which is an updated version of Space Invaders where as you play, your ship gets more complicated and the invaders get more complicated and boom, 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 boom. I would not have even known about that game without Xbox Live. So, Joe, what are you geeking on?
Speaking of games, a couple weeks ago, I was very happy to find out Simpsons Tapped Out has been fixed. So I have my lands, I have my buildings, I can see everything. I was so happy. They're in the middle of their own mirror universe saga. I was so happy I spent $20 and got the Mirror Disco Stew. Because as I said before, they're freemium games, but if I really, really enjoy them, I will spend the money. I did go to the Minnesota State Fair. My wife and I had one day to go. It's kind of a bummer. I grew up right next to the Minnesota State Fair. So for me, as a kid, I could walk to the fair. I could bus to the fair. My dad would take us to the fair every so often. We didn't spend a lot of money doing things. I actually remember, I think my brother and I, the first concert I ever went to was Steve Martin. I believe it was 77, maybe 79. And Chris and I, when we were dating, we'd take the bus or go to the fair. So it's kind of a Minnesota get together. It's probably outside of the Texas State Fair, the largest, best run state fair in the nation. It's the only reason Texas gets bigger ones because they run it, I believe, 2 months over every weekend. This is
They're forever.
Yeah, this is like, it goes from Thursday to Labor Day. So it's like 7, 12 days, just boom, nonstop hit. And of course, one of the big things to look for are the weird foods. There were somewhere in the neighborhood of like 36 or 40 new things, new vendors. I ended up picking out a few. First place I went was, I think it was called the Hideaway. They had some called Duck Duck Blue Duck, which was kind of a gingery, ciderish type drink that came with foam and a little blue rubber ducky. I got the rubber ducky. And as it was one of the first things I had, because I got there early in the morning, I drank maybe half of it, and I was like, yeah, this is a little too much alcohol to be drinking on an empty stomach. Plus, as I walked away, there was like an overhead fan. We didn't go during one of the mega hot days, like Cory talked about coming next week. The fair opened to 100-degree days with like 80% humidity, dew points in the high 60s. One of the hosts of my favorite show, the Jason show, she's pregnant, Kendall Marks, and she loves the state fair because she loves to eat, but she's very, very pregnant. And out of abundance of caution, she wasn't able to go. She was able to go this week because there were 2 days where it was actually 70, 80-ish with low humidity. Today was one of them, too. I did try the pickled lemonade at the Nordic Waffle booth. Nordic Waffle is in Rosedale as well. They basically take their waffles and put stuff in it. I got, I think, bacon and egg in it. Their big one is a Pebbles cereal. Yes, the Flintstones Pebbles Bam Bam cereal. The pickled lemonade, not a lot of pickle flavor, but it was really good, really refreshing. And let's see, where else were they? On the food side, I did the fried green tomato sandwich at the Minnesota Farmer Union. That was my breakfast after I was a little tipsy. And it was incredibly delicious. Fried green tomatoes are really good. Put it in a sandwich. I had mine with bacon. You do a vegan option. I had the hot honey cheese stick at the Blue Barn, which is basically hot honey on a cheese stick wrapped. I also had the regular deep fried cheese stick, which was like eating a Pronto Pup with cheese in the middle, and the cheese almost evaporates, but if you eat it fast enough, it's pretty good. The one thing, Cory, I feel I failed. I did not, at the International Bazaar, find the lutefisk tacos. Not because I didn't try, they're selling out every day. Now, this is an interesting food because I watched, again, on the Jason show, they have their foodie ex queen, Stephanie Hansen, who's got a podcast on Fox 9, Down App, and on My Talk Radio. She describes food in such a way that I get hungry watching her. It just drives me crazy doing it. And she liked the lutefisk tacos. You could tell that Jason and Miss Shannon, a local comedian who's replacing the very pregnant Kendall, they were like, And the big thing is that if you've ever had lutefisk, it's basically some type of panfish that they soak heavily in lye. Lye is poison, but you very rarely die. My guess is this was done kind of a Swedish thing because way back whenever, before the invention of ice and ice boxes, this is the way you could catch a lot of fish and ensure it wouldn't rot over the summer months, over the winter months.
Yep.
People still eat it. I know in one of these sports things between governors where they're like, well, if my team wins, you get this. If my team wins, I have to give you this. For some reason, they brought a bunch of lutefisk to a restaurant. My recollection is that it was owned by Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro tried it. No idea what he thought of it. But I figure if Robert De Niro can try lutefisk, you can. But I only had one day at the fair. When I went up there, I said, lutefisk me. And they go, we're sold out. I said, for the fair? I said, no, just for today. So kind of disappointing. I did do my normal stops. Nick Post, God bless him. His sister Gabby is still running the 1919 root beer booth. So I stopped by, saluted him, had my Pronto Pup. Pronto Pup's different than a corn dog because I believe it's a different type of cornmeal or whatever I forget. I had it all written down, but who cares? I did get my Sweet Martha cookies bucket. I brought a baggie and put half of them in. And of course, by the time I got them home, the stuff in the baggie merged into one gigantic cookie because it was still warm. The buckets are okay. So I still got those going for me. Did get my real genuine cheese curds. And we had some other fun stuff. Some of it I can't pronounce. It was kind of a Oriental spicy bunny dish, holy ham loaf, that type of stuff. So,
poor bunny.
I know, it was fun. But no, it was a blast. Very, very
Now, when you were eating the bunny, were you looking at Bun Bun?
I was. But unfortunately, he's got cataracts and can't see, so I don't know what he was seeing. So, Cory, you know who Svengoolie is?
Why, yes, I do.
Did you get the Svengoolie books from Frank Millar?
No, I did not.
You won't because they're running a minimum of at least $30 a piece on eBay. They originally were $7.99. And they go up from there, including a couple $100 signed ones by him. But that's not what I came to talk about, even though I did sell mine on eBay. I did get I think it was a New York Comic Con exclusive one or somebody's exclusive one at a Comic Con. And I got that. So I sold my two that I got for $30. I got this one for $30. So I figure I came out, and plus once I've read it, I can always sell it. Because the fun thing is, where'd it go? Come on. Oh, did I close the window? Stupid Joe. Oh, here we go. The big thing with Svengoolie is a MeTV sensation. And this is his first full-length comic book feature from Frank Millar Presents. And the one they have I see on Atomic Avenue, guy wants $94.99 for. Tons of creators. Jim Roche, Christopher Jones, Art Balazar, Jill Thompson, Bill Morrison, just to name a few. Now, that's not what I came to talk about. This is kind of a mini geeking because first of all, I got to set up who Svengoolie is. They had a Svengoolie feature in the middle of DC Comics in 2019. It was one of those things with like 4 parts over 4 comics. And then they put it all together in a Svengoolie meets the DC universe, and they gave it away at the New York Comic Con only. If you were smart enough to get it. Cory, do you remember the Kentucky Fried Chicken ones they gave away?
Yeah.
Yep. The minimum it's going for, unslabbed, $700. That's the Svengoolie meets DC. I have no idea what the KFC one is. Well, as I was going through, I happened to see a guy, he was advertising one for $200. And I'm like, I'll buy it. 20 minutes later, I can't find it. And canceled the sale. And I believe him, but do I really believe him? Or did he just like, holy shit, I can't sell this at $200. It goes for thousands of dollars. So you never know. And of course, the place I bought it through, you can leave them bad feedback. And I'm like, JoJo, don't play that way. But right now, if you want to get one, you can get one for $670 unslabbed or one for $849.99, 9.6. There's a 9.8 for $1,200. I'm telling you, Cory, we got to get to the New York Comic Con as well. I know you're always worried about what I'm buying, Cory, because you know I'm nuts. And I'll just share a couple things. Just recently at the Twins game, of all places, they had Marvel Comics Night. And if you went there, you could get a jersey that had the Marvel Comics on it, along with the Twins logo. The Minnesota Comic Con got set up, or association, I guess. They had a shout out on the scoreboard because they bought a bunch of tickets. They also gave away an I Am Groot custom branded content with Minnesota Twins on it. And it's basically somebody pitching, and then the back you got Marvel and the Twin Cities or Twins logo. Last year they had one, Thor, with, well, it's got somebody pitching, and then behind him is Thor, and then Jane Foster Thor. Inside, they're just reprinting something, so it's not like it's exclusive. In this case, it was part 4 of 5, The Banner of War. And of course, plenty of ads to get you pumped up to go look at other Marvel comics and things like that. Just kind of fun giveaway comics. They're not terribly expensive. I was able to pick up a couple of them off the eBays. Speaking of expensive, I did find a copy of the Punisher. Oh, what was the actor's name? John yeah. You know, the guy who played the Punisher in the Daredevil Punisher Netflix series. They have a photo cover of him. Apparently, super duper rare. I wasn't even aware of it. Some guy gave me a good deal, picked it up. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Probably bring it to the Fall Con on October 28th, the return of P&J Comics. So if you see something on the eBay store and you want it, come back. I know I'm talking about a lot of comics, and everybody's like, oh, what about signed comics? Well, fear not. I did pick up a Dark Shadows Gold Edition, Innovation #1, that was signed by Hector Gomez and Jose Pimentel. And then I did get my Tom King variants of Batman 134 and the Man Who's Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing, #7, that were signed by Tom King himself. He only signed 39 of them, and I got some, this is 21, there's a number 27. So, Cory, if you want, you'll get what's coming to you, smart guy. If you want, I can find my variants, because I know you said you didn't pick them up, and if you want, I can figure out a way to get them to you.
Ooh.
See? That's how I get rid of comics. A couple things I've been watching. I think I mentioned last time I was watching Story of Late Night, which was a CNN special. Now that I discovered I have CNN on my Macs, it was a wonderful documentary of late night. And I think it covered it pretty well. Started all the way from Jack Benny, going forward almost to, well, it's definitely the 3 guys going now, including whatever, you know what I'm talking about. He's retiring. Took over, forget it. My name list disappeared. But it was great. I'm also starting the history of the sitcom, which is not as great because they're not really doing a linear story. They're doing, here's how sitcoms dealt with racism. Here's how they deal with class warfare. And they're not wrong. And it's kind of fun because while we're doing this, Chris and I kind of fell in love with Welcome Back Carter again, which we were able to find on, I think it's Pluto Television. And we can watch it with just minimal ads. So we're starting to watch that again. What I've read, other than oodles of comics, I read Kiss, Army of Darkness. If you like Kiss, you like Army of Darkness, you definitely want to pick this up. It's basically just a lot of fun. It's one of those, again, if you don't know who the characters are, don't bother. I read Wolverine Snicked, the Viz comic I recommended. It's basically Wolverine's the lone hope of the last remaining humans of a ruined dimension as they fight to survive against robotic organisms. What's great is it could conceivably have happened anywhere in Wolverine's timeline. The way the artist, Sutumo, he drew Wolverine, it looks like a very, very young Wolverine. Brilliantly done. And it's just a lot of fun. Issues just came out now, so you should be able to find it. Again, I didn't see it anywhere at any of the comic shops I've been geeking at. I'm like, dudes, it's Wolverine. It's manga. You got, sorry, I'd tear my hair out if I had it. Oh, I actually read some comic books that I wanted to comment on. The first one was the Fallen Friend Death of Ms. Marvel, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. It brought me into, basically they're having a service, and I cannot find, it's a Muslim service, trying to find what they call it, and different heroes come in and they're talking. I think it's KHATM is what they call it. It's not a regular prayer. It's a gift to someone who's, of course, first saying it breaks down dead. Her teammates come in. The Imam who's running it is very welcome because they're celebrating Ms. Marvel. They're not necessarily celebrating Kamala, because I don't believe at this point her parents knew who she was. Wolverine comes in. And of course, the kids who, oh my God, you see who came through the door? That guy, the Wolverine, the X-Men. Red Dagger comes in. Ms. Marvel comes in. It's just a wonderful service. Captain Marvel comes in. Iron Man comes in. Very respectful and very informative for someone like me who's not necessarily familiar with Islamic services. However, as you know, as we all know, she'll get better because she's alive in X-Men number 25. Now, in X-Men number 25, again, this kind of ties back to what we were talking about in the whole crossover thing. I don't really know what the F is happening in Fall of X-Men. They're bringing it back. They're obviously do a pretty good job, but this event is really made to be read, I think, every single title that ties into it. And because you kind of follow who's doing what, what's going on in the circle, blah, blah, blah. But what I really wanted to talk about is Kitty Pryde going to war against Orcus. Oh, absolutely phenomenally deadly. She's doing things that you and I probably realize she could do and never need to. She's basically embraced say it right, Cory, Ogun from Shadow Pride, Wolverine, Kitty Pryde, whatever, the miniseries where some Japanese demon kind of possesses her. She pretty much embraces that character and utterly devastates these guys. No one's going to know about it because after she was finishing phasing out and through and together and whatever the various bodies, she basically phased them into the concrete so no one could find the bodies. This is utterly the most devastating I've ever seen Kitty Pryde's character. And for what's going on, she's probably very justified in doing what she's doing. Not to mention these guys are going to kill her anyways. But as I'm reading other books and you find out what's happening, when she finds out what's happening in other books, she's probably going to be going, oh, crap. So I'm looking forward to the Fall of the X Omnibus Complete Collection because what sucks about this crossover for anybody who's jumping on, you can't jump on because you've had to have been there almost from the beginning. This is a grand finale. You're not going to understand why everybody's all excited about Emma Frost and Tony Stark getting married, why they're getting married. I kind of understand what's going on, but judging by what I read in X-Men 25, I'm not going to, but I wish I could go back and just pick up where it was all starting. I think the Hellfire Club Gala. There's none to be found. Every X book is selling out, at least at the comic shops I went to. Oh, good thing comics aren't selling, eh, Cory? And I wanted to, there's been a sighting. I saw the Phantom Stranger Omnibus. It was sitting on the shelf at the source. Oh, yeah. Plus, it means at the aforementioned FallCon, I'm going to sell off my Phantom Stranger collection. That includes a Phantom Stranger #1. So if you got any interest in it, again, they're not in minty mint shape. Otherwise, I'd be retired and we wouldn't have sponsors of this here podcast because I would buy it all. This podcast is sponsored by a grant from Joe Ryder. Why? Because he can.
I am geeking on one thing and one thing only, because with all the wrestling over the weekend, I didn't have a lot of time, and that is the best of Simon & Kirby's mainline comics. This was starting in 1954. They started their own publishing company, distributed through Carlton. It only lasted 2 years, sadly, because comic sales fell off a cliff. But this is a collection of stuff I have never been able to find. So we have the complete Bullseye, which was a Western series that ran for 7 issues. Bullseye is the man who can't miss. And it's a Western series about basically it's his gimmick is that no matter what he does, he always hits. So he does a lot of trick shots. Beautiful art in this thing. Just beautiful art. They reprint the entire series, all 7 issues. Then we get, let's see here. Then we get, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories from Kirby's Foxhole comic, which was their war comic. We get 2 stories from In Love, which was their romance comic, and the gimmick for In Love was that each issue was novel-sized, which means they only had 1 story in each book. Whereas most comics would have, at this time, most comics, even like Superman, Batman, would have 4 or 5 stories in a 48 or 52-page book. Then we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stories from their crime comic Police Trap. And toward the last issues of these books, they would actually have another Simon & Kirby smash hit on the cover. The last couple issues were all code approved, but I was surprised when I looked at the covers like, oh, I did not realize that they were distributed by Carlton, because there's the little Carlton. The first issue of Bullseye is through independent distributors, but then after that it's CDC, which is Carlton Distribution Company. Like right there. This is good stuff. This is Jack Kirby work I have never read before because it was owned by Simon & Kirby, no one's ever reprinted it. Now, Marvel did reprint the Fighting American and Boys Ranch stuff that they published themselves. And I think Fighting American was also republished by DC at one point. But this is just a golden age for comic reprints. And I'm only halfway through the issues of Bullseye, so I have another few days of comics enjoyment just sitting and reading me some Jack Kirby. Believe it or not, kids, you have listened to us blather on about funny books for over an hour and a half.
Holy cow, 30 minutes less than last week. However, next week, previews? I got mine.
I will not have it in time.
Oh, you guys are so lucky then. Yeah, I was surprised. I got mine from the source, but I had to get my Marvel one from Granite City, and I picked up the DC one at Comic College. So get it together, guys.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Ending on a bit of a freaking, because my younger brother always tore the last pages of my comic books out and never told me why. I had to draw my own conclusions. All right. While you guys listen to this, we'll be baking, I tell you. So go ahead, hit my music and make it cool.